Your love. We're talking about love today. And Dr. King is quoted as saying that justice is love demonstrated in public. Think about that. Justice is love demonstrated in public. And there's, that romantic love, that filial love, that love you talk about in the historical tribute today. And that we've been talking about love for a long time in our community as black people. But I want to talk about love in a slightly different way in terms of how our love gets shown, how our love gets activated. And there's a passage that comes from the Hussiyah. You can find page 64 of Hussiyah. It's a familiar passage from the book of Anshe, passage number 1, because I think that to show your love is to serve your brothers and sisters. To serve your brothers and sisters. 64. From the book of Anshe. Let's read this passage together. Serve God, that God may protect you. Serve your brothers and sisters, that you may enjoy a good reputation. Serve a wise person, that he or she may serve you. Serve one who serves you. Serve any person, so you may benefit from it. And serve your mother and father, that you may go forward and prosper. Examine every matter, that you may understand it. Do not say, I am learned, but rather set yourself to become wise. Be gentle and patient, then your character will be beautiful. It is in the development of character that instruction succeeds. Learn the structure and functioning of the sky. Learn the structure and functioning of the earth. The good fortune of a town is a leader who acts righteously. The good fortune of a temple is its priest. The good fortune of a field is the time it is worked. The good fortune of a storehouse is the stocking of it. And the good fortune of the wise is their excellent advice. Show your love. Serve your brothers and sisters. The ancestors gave us a real clear direction when it comes to service. When it comes to that love of self, love of community, love of family. It says, serve God, that God may protect you. Serve your brothers and sisters, that you may enjoy a good reputation. I like that line about reputation. Because one of the things that if you don't own anything else, you might not have a fine car. You might not have a big, $1 million house, which in Oakland is now 700 square feet. Really? It ain't like it's like a huge house no more, right? Studio. You may have may not have all kinds of nice clothes in your closet, but you do have a reputation. Like how people think about you based on your work, your love, your service, how you do things. Your reputation is important. And if you get stripped down to all, everything else goes, your reputation is what people know you by. Ashe. It says, serve, your brothers and sisters, that you may enjoy a good reputation. And who are our brothers and sisters? All of those people in our lives that we care about, that we love. Those young people that are coming into our midst, our elders, everybody who is part of this community are your brothers and sisters. Serve a wise person, that he or she may serve you. Serve one who serves you. Serve any person, you may benefit from it. The writer of this text, Anshe, was coming at this from a lot of directions. It was like, serve God. If you don't get that idea, okay, then serve your brothers and sisters. Okay, all right, fine. If serve yourself, serve anybody that you might benefit from it. So they give us a lot of opportunities to get it right. This idea of love and service is part of our bigger tradition. The love of self should be driving a lot of other things, like these 4 ideas that we've talked about in the past. One, the perfectibility of human beings. That's part of our tradition. We believe that human beings could move toward perfection. The teachability of human beings, which means that we never give up on anybody. That we feel like all human beings, all Africans, all human beings, wherever they come from, are teachable. That we can learn to do better. That if you know better, you can do better. Ashe? Ashe. That we believe in the free will of human beings. You get to make a choice about how you want to be, about how your reputation goes, about how you serve, how you love, and then this idea of the sociality of human beings. In other words, the service that's grounded in Ma'at. So that we're perfectible, teachable, we have free will, and that we are with other people as a place to show service, a place to show love. As usual, I've been on the road, and since last time I saw you, I've been to Detroit, Harlem, D.C., and a campground down near Santa Cruz. And this is all in the last 8 days or 10, something like that, 9 days. So, we're kind of moving around a little bit, And the blessing of it is I get to see a lot of what's going on in black life. I get the chance to see what's happening in Detroit. Detroit's kind of trying to bounce back. You know, Detroit was one of the biggest chocolate cities back in the day, along with Oakland. You know, these are cities formerly known as chocolate cities. You know, unfortunately, right? Gary, Indiana, Washington, D.C., Cleveland, Oakland, Detroit. And Detroit lost almost half the black population over the last 20 years, and people are just starting to kind of come back. There's a lot of empty houses, a lot of empty lots, and I was there for a meeting of the Association of Black Foundation Executives, an organization that's been around for 40 plus years, encouraging black folks in philanthropy. And we think about philanthropy, it's the individual philanthropy, like what you give to Jose makes you a philanthropist. What you give to Elamide, if you give money to any institution, it makes you a philanthropist. And then these are also folks that are in big institutional philanthropies. And the thing that strikes me about AFI is every year they have this conference. This year about 400 people showed up. And there's a lot of millennials, a lot of 30-somethings who are now in a position to do good in their communities with other people's money. And they're having conversations about, well, how can we do that better? What can we do? And I'm encouraged because I see young people, you know, anybody who's younger than 40 is a young person to me now. Young people who want to do good in the world, who want to show love, who want to show service, and are trying to figure out the best strategies for doing that work. And one of the things that is also happening is that when I go to these national meetings, there is a hunger for African culture. People want a libation. People want a song. People are starting to wear the clothes that we like to wear. They're getting out of those business suits and those ties. People come in, you know, how we come with style. Because we're in that transition moment. Because some of the brothers who are a little bit more conservative still have on a European business jacket. But then they'll have on a baseball cap with something about Africa on it, right? And then we start wearing shiny pointy-toe shoes, too. We started wearing more comfortable shoes. So you're starting to see the style starting to dictate. But it's more important than that. We're starting to see people think about, well, what does it mean to be African? So that beginning conversation for some folks is a conversation we've been having in this community for more than 30 years. So that's encouraging to me. The musicians will appreciate this one. On the first night of the conference, there was a tribute to Aretha Franklin. And they had, because, you know, it's Detroit City, Motor City, Motown, all of that sound that was coming out of Detroit in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond was being paid tribute to. And there was a Aretha Franklin tribute. They held it at the Charles Wright Museum, which is a beautiful African-American museum in Detroit, a huge structure that's been built over the last few years. But Ray Chu, some of y'all know who Ray Chu is, a composer, arranger, was busy on the East Coast. He's somebody who's done a lot of work. He was one of Aretha Franklin's musical arrangers and composers, and he put together a group of friends that included, this is a name that takes some of y'all back, Cheryl Pepsi Riley. Y'all remember Cheryl Pepsi Riley, right? But there was vocalists, there was a horn section, and they did a tribute to Aretha Franklin that was really powerful. And you know when Brother David and all the musicians would get this, this was they did a set that was probably like an hour and 20 minutes. It was a long set. And then they started taking requests from the audience. So, you know, any Aretha Franklin song. So you'd be like, respect, Chain of Fools, you know, all this good music that was coming up. So these are some musicians that love to play, and they served people because people got up and danced. People were able to sing along. But that idea of service, like how do you bring it? If you're a musician, you're bringing the music for people to be served. If you're a philanthropist, you're doing things in the community that serve other folks. The other thing that happened to me on this trip was I was in Harlem. And I enjoy going to Harlem because, one, the weather was nice. And two, there's a section of Harlem somewhere around 116th and Madison they call Little Senegal. And there's a bunch of Senegalese folks in that community. So Senegalese businesses, you can walk by and you smell that good cheboujen being cooked. You smell that churai, that incense when you walk past people's doors. You see these long, tall Africans, you know, like my family, I guess, you know, the long, tall Africans, you know, Fulani and the Fulani and the Wolof. And so being in that part of New York, though, I got a chance to go to the market and just moving around in the market. It reminded me so much of being in the market in Banjul or being in the market in Dakar, where folks were selling their goods, music was playing, and good conversations were happening about what's going on in Africa. What's going on in Senegal? What's going on in places on the West Coast? And so again, the service, if you will, that people were giving was being their authentic self. It's nice to go around black folks being black. Ashe?
Ashe.
Being in black spaces where you can just be unapologetically African. You don't have to like explain it. You don't have to have no preface. You could just be a You could just be yourself. Your natural born black self. Ashe. And so that was a blessing as well. Then I came back in town, went to DC and did some work there, and again, that same idea. I was working with some folks who were young leaders in the organization, and they were pushing hard against white supremacy in their organization, pushing hard on changing the way that work happens. And then when I came back to Oakland, before I went to this camp that I'll tell you about in a second, was in a meeting with some folks who were looking at this idea of belonging. Like, how do we make sure that black boys and native boys who are doing the worst in education and jobs and other measures, how do they get a sense of belonging? And it made me think about in reference to work that Baba David and other educators have been doing in Oakland with African American children. Sometimes it's in the context of Leoma Day, sometimes it's African American Male Achievement, sometimes it's Freedom Schools, sometimes it's Youth Uprising, sometimes it's the OYDC. But we're doing that work on behalf of our children so that our children can do better. So that our children will understand this passage, examining every matter that you may understand it, helping them understand how to navigate their world. We're showing our love to our children. And I know I'm in the right place whenever I hear certain things. Because there was a brother in that conversation who started referencing Dr. Asa Hilliard. And he was talking about Dr. Hilliard's work in terms of culture and race and how we think about our children and how we even think about, Dr. Nobles and others have taught us this, how we think about even our ways of knowing. Like how we know things is different than European culture. Because we intuit things, we look at the data, we look at all of the signs and symbols around, and then, if we're smart, make a judgment about what it is that we're seeing. So we're examining every matter that we may understand it so that we can show our love, so that we can do our service. And so this idea of what we do here at Rose and what our vision is, what our vocation is, has to do with worship and praise in the ways of our ancestors, libations, doing healing circles, being connected to spirit. This idea of teaching and learning our history and culture. Our young people are showing us a deep interest in our history. It may not always look like that, but they want to know, how do we get to be how we are? How do we get to be in the condition that we're in? What can we do to actually move it and shift it? And so I'm hearing more and more, I'm encouraged by this, because I'm hearing more and more conversations with our young adult leaders, our 20-somethings and our 30-somethings, about understanding our story. We are uniquely positioned to help share that story. We've been exploring that story every week for 30 years, doing historical tributes, doing the work that we do in Leoma Day when we do that work well, the work that we do in our classes when we are sharing that information. So we're sharing not only the story of Harriet Tubman, but we're sharing the story about how black folks and Native Americans got down. When we went to the Seminoles, we ran away from the plantations. We're down in Florida. We were able to actually work with and be in those communities. So our story is rich and deep. That we want to connect to the natural environment. So this last little part of my week, or week and a half, was spent down in Santa Cruz in the Redwoods, in the Santa Cruz Mountains. And it was a retreat that was called the Movement Warriors Retreat. It's about 30 people, young people from around the state, and some of them were as young as 15, 16 years old. Some of them were in their 20s. Many of them had been incarcerated. Some of them had been in juvenile hall for 2 or 3 years. Some of them had been in adult facilities. There was one person who had served 29 years in jail. And is now, and when people come out of that situation, they are hungry for information. They study. They may have had the opportunity to study because they had the time on their hands, if you will. But now they're looking at, well, how do I apply this? What do I do with this in our community? We are in a really interesting position to work with folks like that. The other thing that was striking about this was we were in a natural setting, so the redwoods. So it gave me a chance to just breathe. Sometimes you just need to be in the trees, in the fresh air, with the wind blowing in your face, enjoying spring. Ashe.
Ashe.
That's what we do 3 times a year with the Equinox and Solstice Festival. But make sure you get out in nature more often. Because if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling like I just don't know what else to do, sometimes just get out in nature and leave your burden, leave your baggage out there. The energy of that place will soak it up. There was a little creek that runs through this property. It was called Happy Valley. The Happy Valley Conference Center. And I was like, okay, it's a little weird name, kind of, sort of, but it was happy. It was happy. But the thing about that creek And so we've had so much rain in the Bay Area and in California generally that everything is green now. It's beautiful. When you think about how brown stuff was this time last year versus how green it is now. And almost every body of water, streams, creeks, rivers are full of water. The snowpack is there. We're going to have a lot more water this year. And it was beautiful being in a place where that creek was running and you could hear the creek. It was a little bit of white water in it. And that idea in our tradition, out of the Yoruba tradition of Oshun, that fresh water, that pure water. And I got a chance to act like a big kid. I got down there, I took my shoes off, took my socks off, rolled up my pants leg, and played in the creek. It was good for my spirit. Yes, it was. I say. And that idea of like how we show love to nature. How does nature show love back to us? That there were young people, many of whom don't get a chance to be out in nature. And sometimes when you take young people from the city out into the country, out into nature, they are more afraid of the silence than they are of the sound. Think about this. It's too quiet. I had kids say, it's too quiet, Baba. And I was like, wait a minute, how can it be too quiet? Right? But if you grow up in a community that's constantly got sirens and people doing donuts and people arguing on their cell phone in the middle of the street and people sitting in their car arguing, just arguing, there's a lot of stress in the environment. So we need to figure out, well, how do we serve our people by connecting us back to nature? How do we serve our people? And I was encouraged because these were African descent folks in the room with Latino and Native American folks and other indigenous folks. And the young people are figuring out something that we've been talking around. And what they're figuring out is that they can be themselves and still be with other people. They can be African and still be with other people. And appreciate other people's culture. So you don't have to, if you love yourself, don't mean you got to hate somebody else. Ashe? So it was this beautiful moment where last night as we were closing the program, there's this young brother who came here from Atlanta. He's been here, he and his wife have moved here, and he's a musician, and he's a priest in the Ifa tradition, a young brother named Oba. And he taught people a song, beautiful song about ancestors, and he had everybody in that room. Didn't matter how old, young, what race you come from, what ethnic background. He had everybody singing about, let's call forward the ancestors. And then when the energy went up, he's a drummer and I had my drums, so we played together. It was beautiful to be able to play. And what he did was he then invited people to get up. And he got people dancing. So just imagine for a moment that image of young people, 20-somethings, 30-somethings, a few teenagers mixed in there, who were able to dance together, sing together, and then pray together. It didn't matter what community they came from because they were all like on the same thing. And so the first prayer was in Yoruba. The second prayer was in a Native American language. And then the third prayer was in English, and it was a Christian prayer. And nobody had no problem with nobody. It was all love. Because they were serving each other. They were serving everybody in that room with a little bit of praise, with a little bit of worship, with a little bit of heart. They were showing love. So I think I'm encouraged because I think if we can work toward creating an environment for young leaders, we can work to create an environment for young men and women who are interested in learning together and leading together, our legacy will be strong. I left that room feeling like, and I said this to one of the other elders in the room, there's a brother named Robert who's a Native American elder I've gotten to know over the years, and we both kind of looked at each other at the same time, we started smiling. Because we said we felt like we got past the baton. We can still be involved. We just don't have to run it. And that's what I want to push us, Jose, as we have older leadership, they hear that we have to cultivate younger folks. We have to cultivate younger leadership. My brother said to me, even during the litany of sacrifice, and we've heard this more than once, we should do this as a symbol of moving forward. Everybody who goes to any other church, any other mosque, where you want to give some money, guess what? They got some modern technology. They got a square on somebody's cell phone. You can swipe a card. You're not still writing a check. You're not putting money in an envelope. Venmo, PayPal. These are all tools, Ashe. Thank you for that, bro. These are all tools. And so when younger people come in the room, they need to see some newer tools. Ashe. And we have to throw out everything, but we got to have some use. It's just like right now. If you are a home handy person and you go to Home Depot, they got some new tools now. They got some tools with some nice electric batteries. You know, you got electric lawnmower with a battery to cut your grass. You know, cord, right? You know, if you go into a musical store, there's some new all this equipment you got on the floor. I don't know. Did Jimi Hendrix have all of this? I don't think he did. So there's some new tools, even to play music. So we need to sharpen the tools that we have. We need to get some new tools out there, and frankly, and I said this during the anniversary, those of us who've been in leadership for a long time, we need to start making plans for getting out the way. Honestly, we need to be training other folks that we can hand this baton to. That we ought to be able to love and serve our folks, and make sure that by the time we get to 2020, and this is a challenge I want to repeat and put out there, and I'm gonna sit down after this, is to prepare to lead this institution in capable hands of a next generation of leaders. And that means that we got to let go of doing things the way we do things. We can't expect the young leadership going to do things the same way we do. Ashe? We got to trust that people when we work with folks have the same values that we have, that they're going to do things the way they think it needs to be done. Ashe? And that's the beautiful part of what I experienced over the weekend. These are young folks who are doing things in a different way. They're able to get down with each other in a different way. That we need to bring and serve our people, show love by identifying that new generation of hearers, seers, imaginers, thinkers, rememberers, bringing those new tools to bear to show our love, to serve our brothers and sisters. We need to do this with a new generation, not for, but with. Not for. Because one of the things that young folks are saying in a lot of rooms I'm in is like, nothing for me without me. Ashe? Nothing for me without me. Which means you want to be part of it. And I'm pushing for an intergenerational idea. I'm not saying that we have nothing to offer when we get to be older. It's just that it's just like what NAACP went through years ago. Benjamin Hooks was the NAACP president for 45 years. That means that there was no room to cultivate new leadership. So when he stepped down, they went through this period of crisis and transition that took a long time to settle out. And now Derek Johnson is there after years of them kind of going back and forth about what kind of organization they were going to continue to be, whether they were going to even be an organization. So I think we need to pay attention to show our love and serve our brothers and sisters, to share our best leadership lessons. If you've been a leader in anything, whether you've been acknowledged or not, you need to share the lessons with a new generation of leaders. What did you learn after 30 years of leadership? What did you learn after 10 years of leadership? What did you learn in terms of leadership of even things like a dance company? What did you learn in terms of leadership of music and a band? What did you learn in terms of leadership of governance? We got to have some lessons by now that we can share with other folks. We need to show our love and serve our brothers and sisters. We need to leave a financially sustainable model for what this community looks like. And that's why we're trying some new things, trying to figure out how to get other people in the room. Everybody in this room, if you appreciate and enjoy coming here, whether it's on this Sunday, whether it's on the fourth Sunday with Sunday Soul Sessions, you need to invite other people. It's not a passive thing anymore. You gotta let people know. A lot of folks don't even know that's what we're doing. Word of mouth, social media, however we do it. Mama Marsha's been doing a great job of getting the word out, but it requires all of us. It requires all of us to help put the word out. Ashe? It requires everybody who says they're part of this to show up. It's like you have a party at your house and then you don't come. I never heard of that. I ain't never planned a party at my house and then be like, I can't come. I can't come for the food, the music, none of that. You ever think about this? You plan a party for your house and you be like, but I can't be there. That's an odd thing. You make people wonder, well, then what kind of party is that? Ashe? To show love and serve our brothers and sisters, we need to leave a legacy of educational excellence. Not doing things in a good way, but doing things in a great way. Ashe. At all levels. And that requires seers, imaginers, thinkers, rememberers, communicators. We need to leave a coherent and relevant spiritual practice for a new generation of leaders, a new generation of hearers, a new generation of thinkers, rememberers, and communicators. So our vocation has to be to show love. Our vocation has to be to not talk about Harriet Tubman, but to be like Harriet Tubman. Our vocation to show love has to not be just thinking about this story of Kunanu, but to be him. Our story of love and showing our love for our people, our vocation has to be that we have to be the best of our community. We have to do the best of being, we call a name for our ancestors doing libation, we call Jasiri's name, and let's show love like Jasiri. Let's show love like Robert Thornton. Let's show love like Jeruba Allsbrook. But more than that, let's show love like Victor McElhaney. Let's show love like Oscar Grant. Let's show love like Sandra Bland. These young people, these folks who have been in our community, who we revere and we talk about in our libations, we got to show love like Nipsey Hussle. The generation that lost him, that's a pivotal thing. And those of us who are older, generally, we don't get it. Because he wasn't an artist that most of us listen to. But this is a brother who was an artist, an entrepreneur, an activist, a philanthropist in Los Angeles. When I talked to Shanaka about it, my oldest, Shanaka said that it's on everybody's heart and mind right now. It's painful to lose this brother in the way that he was taken from the community. So to show love, we gotta stretch ourselves a little bit. We gotta push ourselves and say, well, let me understand, let me listen to what some of the young folks are saying instead of fussing at young folks. So there's a lot of fussing going on. A lot of fussing going on that's passing as like, I'm your elder. Well, sometimes the elders gotta listen. That's our best skill, actually, is listening. Because a lot of times young people just want to be able to say what they need to say. They don't want you to fix it. Just like sometimes sisters just need brothers to listen. Say, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just gotta listen. You gotta fix it. Just listen. Ashe? I see somebody smiling over here. So we give thanks. Serve God that God may protect you. Examine every matter that you may understand it. Do not say I'm learned, but rather set yourself to become wise. Be gentle. Be patient. Then your character will be beautiful. Show your love. Ashe.
Ashe.
Stand with me if you would.